So 3 weeks ago here in Ireland, the cinemas reopened. I've been about 10 times now. But when they reopened, The Conjuring was playing, so I went to go see The Conjuring. And then last night, I went to go see The Annabelle, which means I'm assuming every 2 weeks going to be putting out the next installment in the Conjuring universe, which means in 2 weeks' times, I'm going to be seeing The Conjuring 2 in cinema. But I also decided that while I'm seeing them in cinema, to review them. So to start things off, I'm going to be reviewing The Conjuring today. So this was my second watch of The Conjuring. I've actually said this was the only movie that has ever actually terrified me. Now, in the second review, it wasn't as terrifying as the first view. And I remember the first time I seen this movie, I actually had to get up and turn the light on. I was actually terrified with this movie. But this one, it scared me, of course, but then again, I knew when a lot of scares are coming, so it didn't really scare me as much. But the horror in this movie, I think, is phenomenal. I love how majority of it is not actually, I think all of it, none of it is CGI, all of it is practical effects. So that one that stands out to me the most is when the girl's getting dragged around the room by her hair. That was all done practically, which I think makes it a lot more realistic, a lot more enjoyable to know that that actually was done rather than someone just kind of got girl on computer and just moved her around, which made that scene a lot more intense. And I think that scene in general is just terrifying when her hair starts to come up and then the hair gets pulled and she gets thrown around her and literally thrown into glass and everything. That entire scene, I actually think that was a great scene. Of course, you also do have the scene when the mother in the movie is playing the clapping game, claps, I think, I don't know what they called it, but then she's looking for her daughter and then she goes over to a wardrobe and hands come out and all this. Just a terrifying movie. A lot of the stuff in this movie is just terrifying. A lot of imagery in this movie is, of course, terrifying. You got Ed and Lorraine Warren out by the tree, just like you do here in the poster, and you see the feet dangling behind Ed Warren. Just a lot of imagery in this movie, I think, is very terrifying to have. And of course, one of my favourite things about not only the Conjuring movie, but also the sequel, and just in general with this entire franchise, is the characters of Ed and Lorraine Warren. I think even though they are based off real people, these two feel like they're actually married. They feel like they're actual real life people, which they are. And that goes down to the actual cast of Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga, I think her name is. I'm not actually sure how to pronounce her. But the two of them, her in particular, I think is a great actress, especially in the role of Lorraine Warren, and Ed Warren as Patrick Wilson. I'm a fan of him. He's in a few good Conjuring, as well as he's in the Insidious movies. I'm a fan of him in these horror roles. And the two of them in this movie, they work really well together. They actually feel like they are a married couple, which does work really well for this movie. So you feel everything, especially when they go back to their kid, everything, it just feels like a real married couple with a child, and it just works really well for me in that element. Of course, you do also have the other family, which is the parents and like 5 daughters. I like that element. I like the daughters. They all feel like sisters. They're all hanging around playing together. The father in this movie, he's doing everything he can to keep his family safe, and the wife getting possessed. All of it works incredibly well for me. The scene in particular when the wife is tied down to the chair and she spits up blood and she's doing that, all of that was one of the terrifying elements from the first time I seen it. That was one of the scenes that stood out to me the most the first time I seen it, and even this time now on the big screen I was like, okay, that is vile, that's disgusting. And I was wondering, of course they did all the makeup and all that, but the fact that it looks so real, the makeup design for this movie did a phenomenal job. And of course this movie did set up a Conjuring universe. You do have Annabelle that's spun off, and of course in the first Annabelle movie I don't think it's a good kind of horror icon, but what they did in this movie, just setting up with that introduction to the movie when Ed and Lorraine Warren go to the 2 nurses and they're trying to get Annabelle away, all of that builds up suspense. All of it is very creepy, and it all works really well to set up where this movie is going to go, not only in this movie but also in future installments of the Conjuring universe. And one of the standout horror moments for me within this movie, even though I knew it was coming, especially in the cinema I did jump, is when that maid comes out and she's showing her wrist like that and saying, "Look what you made me do." I just think that is an absolutely terrifying sequence. Seeing the cop going around the house looking to see what it is, and then he sees her, it is just absolutely terrifying to me.
Ed?
Look what you made me do!
And of course this movie was directed by James Wan, and he is just, you see his name for horror and you just automatically get excited. Not only did he direct this movie as well as the sequel, as well as the first Saw movie I think, and then he directed Insidious, like Fast and Furious 7, loads loads of great movies, and this movie in particular is probably my favourite of his movies, if not this, Saw. I just think this is a phenomenal movie. I actually put this in my ranking of my top 10 favourite horror movies. I put this really high. I can't remember exactly where, but I know I put this really high, and that it comes down to the way James Wan directed this movie. As I said, the way he used a lot of practical effects. The horror is actual horror. It's not like when I watched Annabelle yesterday. A lot of the horror in that is just big loud noises which made me jump, which is just a natural reaction to a loud noises for you to jump. This movie does not rely on that whatsoever. This movie actually relies on actual horror, which made this movie work for me even more. The fact that I actually found this to be a horrifying movie rather than just a loud noise that made me jump. And also, one of the things I love about this movie is the fact that the more it goes on, the more terrifying it goes. It doesn't just like do all the biggest things in the start. It doesn't just go, okay, here's our scariest thing, and then just watch the next 90 minutes of kind of crap. This movie, as it gets on, it gets more terrifying. As the story progresses, I get more and more interested, rather than they do one great thing at the start and then I'm not really interested for the majority of the movie. Also, I do want to talk about Lily Taylor's performance, who of course plays the mother of the 5 girls in this movie. Her performance is probably the best and probably stands out the most to me, because what she has to do, not only does she have to be a mother who's terrified for her kids, she also has to be the person who's being possessed and also has to be possessed throughout this movie. And what she does in this movie is by far the most standout performance of this movie. Now, and kind of since recently, I was always thinking of Ellen Ray Warren, but after rewatching it, I'm like, yeah, she is by far the best performance in this movie, and now in future will stand out to be the most because of her performance in this movie. So, The Conjuring, have you seen it? Let me know your thoughts on The Conjuring in the comments section down below. Click that subscribe button so you can see more from me in the future, like Annabelle, which I'll be doing in the next couple of days, and then in 2 weeks time we'll be doing The Conjuring too. So if you want to see all that from me, click that subscribe button. But if you want to see more horror from me right now, right up here I'll leave a link to my review, or my ranking of all 7 of The Conjuring movies, and then right up here I'll leave a link or whatever they are to all my ranking of all 4 of the Scream movies. So if you want to see them, they are both up here right now. And as always, thanks for watching.